Welcome to the Galloway Show, so-called because it's brought to you by the Galloways. Tonight, just two of us, my good wife Gayatri and myself. We had to leave our unpaid child laborers at home because we could not afford them. And I'll be coming on to the issue of affordability later. But this is the very definition of no budget television. No budget, no pay for anyone involved, for either of the two people involved. But listen in for the nugget. Last week's Galloway Show was viewed all or in part by 887,000 people. That was at 8 o'clock this evening. It may very well be higher now. This is a true phenomenon of the internet, of television, and it can only be a matter of time before they either kill me or put the show off the air. I'm quite good at it. I freely acknowledge that, but that's not the reason why the best part of 1 million people last week watched a no-budget television program. It's the flatness of the surrounding landscape which makes us stand out. We are living in a sea of disinformation, which actually goes around calling other people disinformation. Of course, as liberals and freedom lovers, once upon a time, they would have said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let the public choose whom to believe, whom to listen to, read or watch. But they can't do that anymore because their numbers are plummeting as our numbers, mine, the numbers of people like Jimmy Dore, are rising inexorably. The best part of 900,000 viewers last week. The previous week it was 511,000. And 4 weeks before that it was 200,000. This is an exponential growth in audience. And I'm grateful to YouTube for their forbearance for the time being. At least, it's very important that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. The more subscribers I've got, the better I'll be able to withstand the vicissitudes of Mr. Algorithm, if you get my drift. But it's also important that you follow me on Telegram, t.me/George Galloway, because in the last resort, that is the place, maybe the last place, that you will be able to find me. The numbers last week were phenomenal because it was a moment of grave international crisis. It's still rather stricken with crisis this evening, but slightly less than it was last week. And so I'm not going to speak for as long this week so I can get more of your questions to answer. And because this is a 1-hour show tonight instead of 90 minutes, and because, as you may already have concluded, I've got a sore throat, and this is Lemsip. Other brands are available. And so I don't want to be coughing and so on in front of you. I'd rather speak shortly, but come to my points fairly rapidly. And the first point I wish to make is about Donald Trump. I'm only too aware that a very large number of people, particularly outside of the United States of America, really hate Donald Trump. I said at the time that he won in 2016, I'm not happy that Donald Trump is the president of the USA, but I'm very happy that Hillary Clinton is not. And that remains my position. And if there was a contest next time between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, if I had a vote, I wouldn't vote for either of those candidates. And if Donald Trump won, I'd not be happy that he won, but I'd be very happy that Joe Biden lost. So that's just to position myself here. And that may be shared by many of you, maybe not. Perhaps we'll see in the community poll on YouTube on the subject I want to talk about. 5,000 people voted, and they overwhelmingly believe, as I do myself, that the carefully stage-managed FBI raid on the former president of the United States in his home at Mar-a-Lago in Florida will actually boost Donald Trump rather than break him. But there isn't any doubt that it is intended to break him. The deep state in the United States has decided if you can't beat him, jail him. And ominously, if you can't jail him, then otherwise eliminate him, perhaps even with extreme prejudice. Maybe he'll go down at a podium like that poor Saudi Arabian ambassador in Cairo this week, poleaxed, dead in an instant. One thing is for sure. The deep state and its Democratic Party adjuncts have decided that there are no circumstances in which they can permit Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. Now, that path, that decision, a strategic decision, is fraught with many, many dangers for the Union, for the people of the United States, and therefore for the world. Let's just reprise what happened. The President of the United States and his wife and his lawyer were at home when unannounced 30 FBI agents stormed into his house. They produced what they said was a warrant to search his property, though they did not give it to either Trump or his lawyer, who was present. In fact, they showed it to the lawyer from a distance of 10 feet. And then they kicked the lawyer out of the house. She had to stand throughout the hours that they were rummaging around Trump's house at the end of a driveway in very high humidity, in very high temperatures indeed. So she and he are not best pleased by the conduct of the FBI. What was the proximate cause for this raid is not yet entirely clear, though newspaper chatter seems to indicate it was about boxes of papers that were taken from the White House when Trump left office. Now, there have been many such claims, and Trump has in fact returned many boxes of papers that the current president says he should not have removed. But it was not that he was hatching a terrorist conspiracy at home. He was not on a wireless set to Moscow and his controller, Vladimir Putin. He was not accommodating pedophiles. He was not fishing like Jeffrey Epstein in the Florida Keys for children to sexually abuse. He was not doing any of the things that very high-profile people, much closer to the Democratic Party than to Donald Trump, are already known to have been doing. Where was the FBI raid on Hillary Clinton over the fake news Russiagate affair that consumed half of the presidency of Donald Trump and billions of US taxpayer dollars, and has indirectly led to exactly the parlous international situation that we are currently in? Where was the FBI raid on all those high-profile individuals that were never off Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express airplane, including President Bill Clinton, who made more flights on the Lolita Express than Jeffrey Epstein himself did over a period of 18 months? Where was the FBI raid on all those high-profile individuals for whom Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were pimping children and trafficking them across state lines for the sexual abuse and edification of grown men, rich grown men, powerful grown men? Where were the FBI raids then? Where are the FBI raids on so many other high-profile individuals connected to the Clinton crime family, the Democratic Party's National Committee, which faked the news that they had been hacked by Russia and then set the dogs running that are running and barking still? No FBI raids for them. Second point, why does it take 30 FBI agents unannounced turning up at the home of a former president of the United States. I would have thought that protocol would dictate that the director of the FBI would show up and say, listen, President Trump, I think you've got boxes of papers here that I need to take away and return to the White House. I'm sure you're going to cooperate with me, President Trump, because if you don't, I'll have to bring agents in. Why wasn't it handled that way? This is the first raid in the entire history of the United States of America on the house of a former president of the Republic. This is a very serious matter. Indeed, Senator Rand Paul, just about the only senator worthy of the name in the US Senate today, stated just a few hours ago that this was an attack on the rule of law. Because who signed the warrant to search Donald Trump's house, Mar-a-Lago? Well, reports say that it was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, now a judge, who signed that search warrant. A man who initially fumbled, let's be kind about it, the initial investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, and then resigned from the bench and became Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer the very next day. Does that smell to you, that story? Is he the only judge in the entire country they could get to sign a search warrant? And why didn't they give it to his lawyer? And why haven't they said exactly what they took away? And look, I'm going to say this. Some might think it's risky or dangerous, but having lived through the last 22 years, at least, of the war on terror and the weapons of mass destruction, hoax after hoax after hoax in one country after another, I've got to wonder whether the FBI planted anything in Donald Trump's house when they raided it. How can we know? His lawyer wasn't allowed to accompany them. She was kicked out. So how can we know what they took away, and how can we know what they left behind? Why do I say that? Because it's quite clear to me that they intend to make it legally impossible for Donald Trump to stand for president in 2024. Why? Because they know that he would defeat Joe Biden and defeat Kamala Harris, if it were she, even more overwhelmingly. So if that's not a danger to American democracy, I don't know what would be. If you are going to criminalize and potentially imprison, or worse, a man because he's likely to defeat the current incumbent, that makes America a banana republic, doesn't it? That makes America no better than Ecuador or Panama, doesn't it? After all, isn't this the land of the free and the home of the brave, and supreme courts by the dozen, and senates and houses of representatives, and bills of rights, and constitutions that are practically chiseled into rock, but you're going to eliminate a guy because you think he's going to win the presidency of the United States? Why is that important? Well, for a number of reasons, of course. From my point of view, as someone who never believed that America was the leader of the so-called free world, I didn't believe there was a free world to be the leader of, and I certainly would never consent to the United States being its leader if there was. But what possible pretense could there be for the United States to be the leader of the free world if they had thrown in prison the former president because he was overwhelmingly likely to be the next president? And here is the rub. I am predicting to you this evening that the Democrats are going to spring what may be called Joe Biden's October surprise. I believe that they are going to arrest Donald Trump in October in the hope of influencing the midterm elections in November in the United States, which currently look like they're headed for a Republican Party landslide, with the Democrats losing control of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. leaving Joe Biden not just a lame duck, but a dead duck. He's a lame duck now, even though he controls all the houses of Parliament in the United States. But he'd be a dead duck in those circumstances. And even worse, the Republican-controlled Senate and Congress might begin impeachment proceedings against him for corrupt practices, including this one, sending 30 FBI agents to storm the house of his predecessor, including his conduct with government officials and state prosecutors in the Ukraine when he was the vice president to Barack Obama. Maybe they'll indict him as the big guy in the Hunter Biden laptop case. Maybe they'll discover that Joe has salted away a very tidy sum of money as the big guy as a cut from Hunter Biden's ill-gotten gains. Maybe they will indict or impeach Joe Biden on any number of things. It could be Joe that's headed for the pokey if Donald Trump's party, the Republican Party, take control of Congress in November. So how to stop that? Well, my prediction is that an October surprise with the arrest and indictment of Donald Trump is their last desperate throw of the dice. I believe, further, that they have already sworn in secretly a hand-picked grand jury in DC in order to frame Donald Trump in a criminal trial before November. I can't tell you how I know that, or I'd need to kill you, but I do think that I know that. And if I'm right, then a very perilous state of affairs will then exist in the United States. Now, if it works, perhaps the Democrats will hang on to their wafer-thin majority in the Senate and their majority in the House of Representatives. Maybe. But at what price? At the price of pushing the United States of America dangerously close to civil conflict. Now, any day of the week, it looks like civil conflict in the United States. There's a school shooting every 1.6 days. So that's civil conflict. There are more murders in Chicago on a Saturday night than anywhere else in the entire world. Anywhere else in the entire world. The United States already has the population of a small African country in prison. If you're a black male in the United States of America, the chances of you being in prison are far, far higher than you being in university. So the United States is racially polarized. It is polarized along class lines. It is polarized on geographical lines. They're very lucky that China doesn't interfere in the separatist, secessionist cause in Texas, in California. I've just been watching Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, and reminding myself how very recently most of Texas was actually a part of Mexico, never mind the United States of America. Davy, I wish you could return, a man of rare integrity. Now, if it works, it may well push millions of supporters of Donald Trump. Even if you accept the count of the last presidential election, well over 70 million people voted for him. And on current polls, then more people would vote for him than apparently voted for Joe Biden last time in 2020. And a very large number of them are armed, and some of them are armed and extremely dangerous. So the sight of Donald Trump in handcuffs, the sight of Donald Trump behind bars, may very well spark civil conflict on a widespread and very serious scale in the United States. And because I have American blood in my own veins, because I love the people of the United States, I don't want to see a new civil war in the United States. Heaven knows they haven't really recovered from the last one. But what if it doesn't work? If An October surprise is sprung, but it does not stop the Republican advance to take control of the Congress. Then a terrible revenge will be reaped by the Republicans on the hapless Democrats who will have gone like sheep into the slaughterhouse. They will have done all that and failed in their objective. Now, you may think that this is hyperbolic. You may think that it is hysterical or exaggerated. But then if I told you last week that 30 FBI agents, armed FBI agents, were going to storm the house of the previous president of the United States of America, you definitely would have said I was exaggerating and engaging in hyperbole. I'm not, however, engaging in anything like hyperbole when I denounce the media whores who have completely ignored the mass slaughter of the innocents in the Holy Land over the last week or so. You would not believe how many children have been massacred in the occupied West Bank and in the besieged Gaza Strip, including 7 children in the Jabalia refugee camp, known well to me. I used to have a house called Jabalia. So touched was I decades ago of the plight of the people in Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza. Well, they're well used to being pulverized and bombed and rocketed. And what can they do? There's nowhere they can run. There's nowhere they can hide. But it is unusual, after a ceasefire has been declared, for Israel to massacre 7 young children. In fact, almost 40 young children in Gaza and in the West Bank have been murdered. I use the word advisedly, have been murdered by the state of Israel, the apartheid state, and the weapons, of course, came from the United States taxpayer. All in the last couple of weeks. If I were to add up how many women and children have been killed in all of the conflicts just since the beginning of the siege on Gaza, which I remind you was imposed because the people there had the temerity to vote for a party that Israel, the United States, and even me don't particularly like. I'm not a supporter of the ruling party in Gaza, but that's the party the people in Gaza chose. And in return, they have been systematically starved, deprived of water, deprived of electricity, deprived of building materials to rebuild the wreckage that has regularly been wrecked on their unbelievably squalid and poor surroundings. I don't know if you're aware, but the Gaza Strip is the most densely populated piece of land on the earth. It's only 21 miles long, something like 5 or 6 miles wide, and in it live 2 million people, surrounded on all sides by barbed wire and brick walls and guards that will shoot the people dead if they seek to cross it, even while being bombed. That's what they do to refugees fleeing the bombing in the Gaza Strip. Of course, having been involved in the Palestinian question since 1975, I've seen a lot of this. But what I find increasingly difficult to take is the willful and deliberate silence over this slaughter. Virtually no mainstream media has showcased or highlighted the killing of these little children and their mothers in many cases. Virtually none of the so-called mainstream media have shown a picture of the little girl of 11 years who is now in a hospital bed, in a dark hospital bed, for there is no electricity. People get operated on in Gaza by candle light. There's a little girl, aged 11 there, who just a week ago was playing with her friends in the squalor of the Gaza Strip, but will do so never again, no more. Glad, confident morning for her, because both of her arms and one of her legs have been amputated. She's 11 years of age. No arms and one leg. What did that little girl do to anybody? What did she do to deserve this? Why has everyone left her alone in that dark hospital bed, virtually limbless in Gaza? And why does nobody care about it in the newsrooms, on the television, or in the parliaments? The Labour Party's shadow foreign secretary was actually on an all expenses paid freebie to Israel when the little girl's limbs were blown off, and he has had nothing to say about it. And he's a black man, David Lammy, always talking about colonialism, always talking about the evils of empire, always telling us how black he is, how subject to racism he is. He is a fully paid up hireling mouthpiece for an apartheid state. An apartheid state that this very week stopped a bus in the West Bank and threw off all the Arabs from the bus because 2 Jewish passengers on the bus refused to travel on that bus with Arabs. As a newspaper in South Africa put it, showcased by Africans for Palestine, in South Africa we called that by its name. Its name is apartheid. David Lammy, the black shadow foreign secretary of the misnamed British Labour Party, could not look that little girl in the eye, could he? Neither could his boss, Keir Starmer, who told us, in case there was any doubt, that he supported the apartheid state of Israel, and I quote, without equivocation. Without qualification, that means. No qualification. No matter what crime they commit, no matter how many legs and arms they blow off little girls, no matter how many Arab Palestinian workers are turfed off buses for 2 settlers, he will support it without equivocation. There's not much to tell you about British politics except that Thick Lizzie is now likely to get 88% of the vote for the Tory leadership and the Prime Ministership of Britain. Thick Lizzie, so called because, well, she's thick, will be the Prime Minister of Britain in September. Why Rishi Sunak, currently standing on 12%, is continuing the contest has got me pondering. And here is another speculation this time rather than prediction. You may have noticed that Rishi Sunak garnered the support, the much valued, much coveted endorsement of Mr. Tony Blair to be the next Conservative leader and Prime Minister of Britain. Here's some speculation. When Rishi Sunak, not if, is crushed in the Tory leadership battle, might he perhaps be on his way out of the Conservative Party? Might he lead a breakaway? Might he cross the floor to Tony Blair's Labour Party? Is Tony Blair planning some new kind of Macronist, en marche type centrist political formation? Well, if he was, A man richer than Croesus, called Rishi Sunak, would be quite a useful man to have on side. He could fund the whole thing on the interest of the money that he's got in the bank, without even having to ask his multi-billionaire wife to chip in. Well, I've spoken for half an hour, having said I wouldn't. Please forgive me for that. Let me take any points, questions that anyone has. Fun Lego math teacher at home sends us $49.99. Sending love. Go truckers and railway workers from Cleveland, Ohio. I am deeply touched by that donation. I have spoken in Cleveland, Ohio myself. You can see the video on YouTube. I've spoken in Dublin, Ohio also. I have very good memories of both meetings. That donation goes straight into the Fighting Fund for something I must now ask you to put into your diary. On Wednesday, the 12th of October, we will relaunch the midweek Mother of All Talk Shows, which will take the place of this Galloway Show. The Mother of All Talk Shows on a Wednesday night, but at 10 p.m., unlike the Sunday show at 7 p.m., so that we can maximize our American audience, as well as not be too late for our British audience, will return on the 12th of October. So it'll not just be me talking into the camera and Gayatri behind the camera and our children running around fetching and carrying. It will be the full 9 yards. Split screen, me interviewing people, and you having the opportunity to call the show. It'll be as good as the Sunday night Mother of All Talk Shows. But I need a fighting fund from you because I have not yet got a commercial sponsor for the Wednesday show. I'm in the market for one. If you know of anyone, given the audience of the best part of 1 million people, it is commercially a very attractive proposition, given how little it would cost you to be the sponsor. Your name could be behind me, could be on the ticker tape running along the bottom. This could be the Jack Ma midweek Mother of All Talk Shows, just to pluck one plutocrat out of the air. But minus a sponsor, I need between now and October the 12th to raise enough in a fighting fund that we're not going to go back out of business within a couple of weeks. So please, you can donate on the super chat function on YouTube. It's very, very easy. Or if you're watching this on, what would you call it, on catch up, then go to moats.tv on our website and click on the donate button. There it is there, moats.tv/donate. Thank you very much for that in Cleveland. Let's go to the next. As you can tell, my voice is getting a bit rough. Sean B. I use the same analogy, and as Chief Inspector Dreyfus once said in The Return of the Pink Panther, compared to the US, Attila the Hun was a Red Cross volunteer. I wish I'd said that, Sean. I probably will. J. Matson Heininger says, I discovered you at the beginning of the Ukraine war. I now watch every week, Sunday and Wednesday. Thank you. And thank you for that. Seems a lot of people are in that boat. What else are you going to do? Just swallow the CNN, BBC, disinformation, bilge? Only an idiot would do that. You'd at least want to hear the other side of the story, wouldn't you? Sean says, I seriously worry for the world that there aren't more people like George Galloway coming up through the ranks. Well, Sean, there are. Richard Medhurst, my guest on Moats on Sunday past, is one such young person. Lee Camp, whom I'm appearing with in London, as it happens, on the 12th of October at 7 p.m. I'm going to open for him at his theatre in East London and then go straight to the launch of the mother of all talk shows relaunch. It's not that convenient, but I couldn't let Lee Camp down. He's another terrific broadcaster. And Jimmy Dore is, the doyen of alternative broadcasters. There are many. And in my own party, the Workers' Party of Britain, we've just had a recruit this week, the outgoing editor of the foreign editor of the Morning Star newspaper, Steve Sweeney, has just joined our party, a young man of immense talent and drive. So there are young people coming up after me. It'll be a while before they can take my hat. But don't forget, I've got 6 children by the grace of God, and they're coming up fast. Let's see. Monkey Boy says, has the PPE contract scandal between corrupt Tories and their colluding cronies been forgotten? Well, not by me, Monkey Boy, but by the media for sure. We spent £37.5 billion on a track and trace system that never worked. Actually, the United States spent a third of their spend on the Afghan war on companies that cannot be traced or tracked on the internet. There's grand larceny of the public purse on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. And none of the media are remotely interested in it. Not remotely. I missed one there. Let me go back to it, if I may. L5 is on tour. Is that Elvis on tour? As soon as Donald was ousted, up springs a new proxy war with Russia and America to boost the black budgets of both countries at the expense of the Ukrainians. Well, 70% of the billions of dollars worth of military aid given by the European Union and the United States of America and Canada, 70% of it never reached the front line. We know that because a CBS documentary told us. Oh, wait, a CBS documentary was going to tell us. It's been withdrawn, not even at the demand of their own government in the United States, at the demand of a foreign government in Kiev. It's being updated. It's being edited. Unfortunately for them, the original still stands. 70% of everything you gave did not reach the front line. Scandal? Seriously? Let's hear now. From Uzi 1MM, the FBI raid won't make any difference, regardless of what they do or don't find. Everybody who hates him will continue to hate him, and everybody who likes him will continue to like him. I kind of think you're right, Uzi, but they obviously don't think that, or they wouldn't have done it, right? But I tend to think you're probably right. Truth Seeker says, Nancy Pelosi sort of apologized to China on the Today Show. Do you know my biggest takeaway now from the Pelosi fiasco? Her son was with her on the trip. Paul Pelosi Jr. Not that you'd know that from reading the passenger manifest. Not that you'd know that from the official documentation of the trip. You just see a guy. Looks a bit like her drunken husband who was pulled over with thrice the permitted amount of alcohol in his blood just recently, if it was indeed him that was driving. Paul Pelosi Jr. is a successful businessman. Why not? His mother is the leader of the House of Representatives. His father is an uncanny predictor of the fortunes of the stock market. What's his business, Paul Pelosi Jr.? He's on the board of 2 lithium companies. Who is the biggest producer of lithium in the world? Not rocket science. Yes, you guessed it. It's Taiwan. This is another Hunter Biden situation. Paul Pelosi Jr., Hunter Biden, are doing exactly the same thing. They are profiting from the political positions of their father and their mother. Well, the business of America is business, as somebody once said. Let's see where we are now. Ohoto.com gives £4.99. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. G. Love so much of what you say and always love how you say it. This content needs support. Sorry it's not so much this week. God bless you for that, Doc. Let's go. Ahmed says Trump looks good because Biden is really bad. I think that's probably right. You never thought anybody could make Donald Trump look good, did you? Line in the sand. A large number of FBI agents is defined as a goon squad, and I'm surprised one didn't defecate on President Trump's bed, a la Amber Heard. The DNC is a crime in progress. Well, I can't vouch for the defecation in Amber Heard's bed. I've never been in it and never will. But the rest of it, I fully concur. Philip Green says the FBI should delve into Nancy Pelosi and Hunter Biden's finances. Well, of course, they may very well do so if the Republicans take power in November. That's why they desperately need an October surprise. Mark my words, write it down. You heard it here first. Mac Barra says, why is this news? All of them are corrupted to the core. All of these news are designed to distract the people from the real news that they don't want people to know. Right, Mac. That's what I'm doing. I'm distracting people from the real news that people need to know. You've unmasked me, mate. Alexandros says, the raids on Trump's residence signifies the death toll of the pretense of democracy in the American Republic. That is essentially what Senator Rand Paul said today, and it's hard to disagree with it, as if there's anyone impartial in the United States, they must have, at least in the back of their mind. Let's see what's next. Gorgonzola, my old friend, says if Trump had ever had to actually apply for a job and engaged in nasty office politics, he might have picked his cabinet and staff more wisely. I couldn't agree more. The staff that he picked, the ministers he appointed, Pompeo and Bolton, scumbags, and the people he employed on his staff would appear to be betraying him left, right, and center. So, yes, you're right. And that does come from the fact that Donald Trump has never lived or worked in the real world. He was born to a multi-millionaire father. He was given hundreds of millions of dollars to play with when coming of age. And it shows. Now, if you gave me a couple of $100 million, what would I do with it? What a war chest that would be for me. Scrub Vision says a nation that don't know what a woman is shouldn't be leading the world in any way. Yep, you're right there. Darren Butler says the USA is one truth tweet away from widespread civil disobedience with catastrophic consequences. I've got to say, in a country awash with 100 million guns, maybe more, 100 million guns, it's a terrifying risk to take to be raiding with 30 FBI agents with guns the political leader of nearly, at least nearly, half the country. That's very risky business, isn't it? And if you arrest him, put him in cuffs, make him do the perp walk, you're asking for it, mate. You really are asking for it. AJ Zeng says, China or Russia or any other country can support those separatists in Texas, California, Hawaii, Guam. Well, I don't think that China or Russia will do that. That's the kind of thing America does. As was pointed out by a Chinese official today, when Blinken was in Africa, literally ordering the African leaders what they can buy and from whom in terms of fuel and food, in the middle of a food shortage crisis, when Blinken went there to give orders to independent African countries. Chinese official pointed out, so no one can dictate where one United States official may travel, but the United States may dictate to an entire continent what they can buy and from whom. The summary of American exceptionalism, that's pretty hard to beat, you know. Let's see. Philip Green again says Trump will have his revenge after 2024. Lots of Democrats headed towards prison. Well, that's kind of why they can't afford to allow him to win one way or another. You heard what I said at the beginning. If you can't beat him, jail him. If you can't jail him, eliminate him one way or another. And I mean one way or another. I mean JFK in Dallas, on Elm Street, that kind of way. Although nowadays things have developed, maybe they'll put something in his hamburgers or in his Coke. Who knows? Let's see. Gray Fox says maybe America is just too far gone. They are all crooks. There's no honor among thieves. America has been doomed for a long time, but let me be clear, all roads lead back to the English crown. Yeah. Right. Used to be the Duke of Edinburgh that was behind all, according to the LaRouches. He's dead now. What is he? Let's see. Catherine Caponas says, you can hate our government, but please don't hate the American people. I'm so sad and ashamed of what is happening. Catherine, nobody can have a bookshelf like mine. Nobody can have a record collection like mine. Nobody can have an American great-grandparent like me. Nobody could admire the can-do spirit and the great technological, scientific, sporting, and other cultural achievements of the United States and hate the people of America. Many of my relatives still live there, though most of them have unfollowed me on Facebook. Don't know why. Polls, Telegram, 222 votes. 86% say that the raid will make Donald Trump, and 14% say break. On YouTube, 834 say it will make him, 15 say it will break him, and 4.8 thousand people voted on the community poll earlier on YouTube, and they broke 85 to 15%. So most people think that the Democratic Party's instruction to the FBI to storm the house of Donald Trump will actually do Donald Trump some good rather than some harm. Let's see. Monkey Boy's back again. Be careful, George, talking about Israel may upset fluffball Starmer. Upset Starmer. Moi. Crowhawk says Israel is an example of unreconstructed European colonialism that has somehow been allowed to persist into the 21st century. I'm afraid that's it. The question it needs asking is why loyalty to Israel now is such a seeming prerequisite to success in Westminster. It's hegemony. It's called hegemony. It is absolute domination of the public space. It is a requirement of election in the United Kingdom, except in one or two constituencies. One where I might have won in Batley and Spen at the by-election last year. Everywhere else, it is, in the British media and in British politics, as you say, an absolute prerequisite that you care not for the Palestinian people and pledge unremitting loyalty to the state of Israel. Mr. Polatrides says, why is it that the media is only concerned with perceived Israeli concerns when Palestinians are being killed on a daily basis? I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave a moment ago. Charterhouse Media Inc. says, you rang tears to my eyes and heart with your truth. God bless you. Thank you, my friend, for that. I nearly brought tears to my own eyes, if I'm telling you the truth. It's not a tumor, gives MYR 3. Malaysian ringgit 3. Thank you very much to all my good friends in Malaysia, including Tun, if he's watching. Richard Thunder says, Moats sponsored by Johnson's Budget Guillotines and Pitchforks for all your subversive needs. I wish I'd thought of that one, Richard. Thank you very much for that. Richard White gives $1.99, the third of 3 donations. God bless you, Richard. Much, much obliged to you. Please don't be shy about giving a small amount. If everybody gave a small amount, we'd have that war chest that I'm talking about. Stanley Park gives Canadian dollars $13.99. Thanks for the moats, George. Best international news show. Thanks, Stanley. I'm very proud of it. It is breaking all records. It is exponentially more watched than any political show anywhere in the English-speaking world. And if it wasn't projecting the politics that it does, they'd be queuing up to sponsor it at big, big money. But then, if we did that, millions of people wouldn't be watching us. The audience for the Moats, plus this midweek Galloway Show, is climbing towards 2 million people a week. An unheard of, undreamt of audience. 8 minutes to go. Let's take some more. Rafael Ligonda gives $9.99. Thanks, Raf. Since I was a little girl, my parents always told me at the beach, if I dig enough, I will end up in China. Why do you think an 80-year-old would say absurdity like this in a speech? Well, Brother Raphael, maybe that was the passing apology, or intended to be, from Nancy Pelosi. But for those that don't know the story, that's what she said on American television yesterday, I think, if not today. She said, I've always felt a connection to China. Because when I was a child, my parents told me if I kept on digging on the beach, I'd end up in China. Yeah, she really said that. We are governed by the least amongst us. We are actually ruled by blithering idiots, by people inches from imbecility. And once they get a drink in them, good God, you wouldn't send them for a loaf. Never mind send them to Taiwan on a high-profile, dangerous international mission. Neko gives $3 American. Thank you, Neko. Much appreciated, brother or sister. Nightly Moth, a good correspondent of mine, says it seems like an ideal time for a new political party that stands up for the working class. Hopefully, the Workers' Party of Britain grows more and more in the coming years. Well, I think the need for a working class party in Britain is so overwhelming, no one can really deny it. Even the Starmerites and Blairites must know it. And they probably wish that Jeremy Corbyn would finally break away and found it. If he did, of course, the Workers' Party of Britain would join it. But it seems they can, for the moment at least, count on Jeremy Corbyn's inability quite to make up his mind about that. Chris Cox gives £5 British. Thanks, Chris. Have you heard of Colonel Richard Black? He'd be a great guest. Check him out. Great work, George. Thanks, Chris. I have indeed. I've loved his stuff. We've been trying to get him on the Moats for some weeks now, and we'll keep trying until we get him. 6 minutes to go. Alberto McAteer, wonderful name, Alberto. Good takedown of Raymond in Swansea on Sunday, GG. Amazing how few people in the UK know the basic facts on Taiwan. If we really cared, we'd facilitate a peace solution between Taipei and Beijing. Absolutely. A little knowledge is dangerous. If someone knows absolutely nothing, well, they'll probably not venture onto the field of public discourse. The problem is those with a little knowledge, who've done their own research and who think they know what in fact they don't. And Taiwan is a very good case in point. But Ukraine is another one. Edu Games 123 gives RS10. What's RS? I don't know what it is, but I'm grateful for all 10 of them. It's from Brazil. Thank you, brother. I've been following your content since last week. Congratulations on the courage to divulge the real facts. Greetings from Brazil. Big greetings to my comrade Lula, the next president of Brazil, previous president also, of course, and to the great journalist Glenn Greenwald, who is based there and who is one of those who speaks the truth to power. Follow him if you're not already. Why not, dude? Gives €1. Why not? Indeed. If everybody in the European Union gave €1 that's watching this show, we'd be quids in. Thanks, dude. Robert P. gives £5 This war won't be contained. Too many Russian, Ukrainian troops have died. Baltic EU puppets better prepare. Well, I hope it doesn't come to that, Robert, because that would be a pan-European and therefore quickly a world war. And whilst I'm ready to go anytime, I'm ready to meet my maker anytime with a clean conscience and high hopes for the other life, I'd like my children and grandchildren to enjoy this great world that God gave us for a little bit longer. But God will decide what happens in the end. Mick A gives £5. Nancy cost US taxpayers and Navy and Air Force on her trip. Yeah, Mick, she cost $95 million to the US taxpayer on her trip. Maybe the Taiwan government chipped in. If not to the US taxpayer, maybe to her, or maybe to Paul Pelosi Jr. Who can tell what went on behind closed doors? Cooler King 74 gives $2. Thank you. God bless you, George, from Kentucky. The Blue Hills of Kentucky. Or is it the Black Hills? Muhammad Ali came from there, Louisville. Raymond Piper gives £2. Thank you, Raymond. Created problems to bleed the West dry. Who created them, Raymond? Lily Pops says, I believe we, the British people, should be pushing the Magna Carta on the government. And don't say it's not relevant, because it's operational even today. It's the people's constitution that government hates. I tend to think that constitutions are overrated. Often they're hardly worth the paper they're sometimes not even written on, because of course the Magna Carta was written on vellum. Kevin Matan gives DKK 89. That sounds like a lot, but I don't know what DKK is. But whatever it is, Kevin, I'm very grateful to you for it. T-Mac gives £2. Thank you, T-Mac, for that. Coming to the end of the show, but Tendai gives £10. Well, that was worth waiting for. USA just approved another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. I can't get my head around it, that they have money for wars but can't feed their people. Well, you're right, of course, though. Please note this. Take a look around you in the public realm and count the number of Ukrainian flags and stickers and paraphernalia that you can now see. Take a look around social media and count how many Ukrainian twibbons there are. The people, as my good friend Lionel in New York City put it today on Twitter, have comprehensively fallen out of love with Zelensky and with the Ukraine. In fact, as Lionel put it, a trifle rudely, you know, watching Borat all day and every day from the Ukraine is becoming extremely trying. For, said Lionel, not just me, but every sentient being in the United States of America, as he lectures the Americans, as he fills his own pockets, as he buys up the real estate on the coastline in Miami Beach and elsewhere. People are saying, hey, we have been had. Well, Neil Curry, last one. When Russia wins, maybe the large, well-trained Ukrainian army's ire will be aimed westwards at the people who caused all the woe. Woe betide if that happens, Neil. I think we've had quite enough war. 'Twere better that this war came to a quick end. Michael Gillespie gives 10 American dollars and says, we need a Workers' Party of America. Amen to that, Michael, and thanks very much for watching. I'll be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. UK time with the mother of all talk shows. And here's the bad news. There won't be a Galloway Show next Wednesday because I'll be driving home to the United Kingdom, finally. And when I get back to the United Kingdom, the 3-hour mother of all talk shows on Sundays will begin again. You see, every cloud has a silver lining. Thanks for watching.